Okay, this video is the second day of your factoring. It's our notes video. You need to follow along with the video and take the notes. You can use your notes to do your Delta math assignment when you're done with the video. But before you leave class, you need to turn in your notes because you will get points for both completing the notes and also doing the Delta math assignment. Okay, so we want to practice factoring. I've got all the types we've learned mixed up, but I want you to write on your top of your paper GCF, because every single time we have a problem, no matter what it is, the first thing we need to look for is the greatest common factor. So on number one, we'll look for a greatest common factor. There isn't one. It's a binomial. It's got a minus sign, and we can take the square root of both. So we can go straight to our two parentheses. The square root of 4x squared is 2x. Square root of 25 is 5y. 1 is a plus, 1's a minus, and we're done. Number two, first thing we're going to look for is the greatest common factor. It doesn't have one. It's a trinomial. The leading coefficient is that invisible 1. So we can go straight to our two parentheses with an x and an x. And now we're going to look for two numbers that multiply to negative 60 and add to 4. Because it multiplies to a negative, we know we're going to have opposite signs, and things that multiply to 60, lots of things. 1 and 60, 2 and 20, 3 and, I said that wrong, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, you get the drift. But the ones that's going to work is 6 and 10. So we have 10 and 6. Okay, number three, first thing we're going to look for is the greatest common factor. But again, there isn't one. This one is a polynomial. It has 4 terms. So when it's 4 terms, we're going to factor by grouping. So we can group the first two things together, and we can group the next two things together. So when I'm factoring that, I'm going to look to see what the greatest common factor of the first two terms is, and that's x squared. I take that out, and I'm left with 2x minus 3. Sign in the middle comes straight down. Plus, out of the next two, I can take out an 8, and I'm left with 2x minus 3. So my parentheses match, so I can rewrite it as 2x minus 3, x squared plus 8, and I'm done. Number 4, look for a greatest common factor. There isn't one. It's a trinomial. The leading coefficient is not 1, so I'm going to guess and check. So I'm going to start to get x squared. I know I'm going to need 3x and x. With 12, I can do 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. I've got options. I don't know. 3 and 4 is pretty common, so I'm going to start there. If I do 3 and 4, that's going to give me 9x, and that's going to give me 12x. Because they're opposites, because it multiplies to a negative, I know they're opposite signs, so I'm going to have to subtract that. Well, that's just going to give me 3x, which is not what I want. So let's see if I switch the 4 and 3, if that'll help. So that's 4 and 3. That gives me 4x. That gives me 9x. Okay, now we're on to something, because when I subtract them, I get 5. I want the bigger number to be positive, so I need the one that makes the 9 to be positive. That's be 3x times 3, so this has to be positive, and this has to be negative, and now it factors. Okay, number 5. First thing we look for is the greatest common factor. We have one, it's a 2. I'm going to take out the 2, and we're left with x squared minus 25. Okay, now we're going to look. It's a binomial. There's a minus sign. We can take the square root of both. So we can go straight to our two parentheses. Square root of x squared is x. Square root of 25 is 5. 1's plus, 1's minus. Number 6. I know some of you are going to be very tempted to guess and check like we did on number 4. But remember, what do we write on the top of our paper? GCF. So the greatest common factor on this one is 2. So I want to take out a 2, and I get x squared plus 4x minus 21. On this one, now it's way easier. I can go straight to my two parentheses. I know I have an x and an x, and I'm going to find numbers that multiply to this and add to that. Notice I left my greatest common factor on the outside. So what multiplies to negative 21? Well, you could have 1 and 21, but that's probably not going to work. But what about 7 and 3? 7 and 3 is a difference of 4, so that's good because it adds to a positive. The bigger one's going to be positive. And then I have minus 3. Okay, number 7. Number 7. Oh, now we want to find a greatest common factor again. but we can't. We don't have one. So to get 4x, we could have 4 and 1 or 2 and 2. I don't know. Let's try 2 and 2. 21. 1 and 21 is possible, but 3 and 7 is more likely. Let's see if that's going to work. Because they multiply to a negative, I know they're going to have to be opposite signs, so I'm going to subtract these two things. So this is 6x. This is 14x. Oh, this is close because 14 minus 6 is 8, so this is good. I need the bigger one to be positive, so I need the outside to be positive. So this has to be positive here and this negative here. And then that is my final answer. Okay, number 8. Now, number 8, we know we got to look for the greatest common factor, but with this -3 right here, we know we have to have one because when it starts with a negative, we have to factor out at least a -1, but on this one, we can take more than that out. We can take out a -3. So I take out a -3 and I'm left with x squared. 27 divided by -3 is -9. Now this is a binomial with a minus sign. Take the square root of both. So I'm going to get x plus 3, x minus 3. Okay, number 9. Look for greatest common factor. I don't see one for all 4 of them. So now I'm just going to factor by grouping because it has 4 terms. So I'm going to group these together and group these together. So out of the first 2 terms, I can take out an x squared, and I'm left with 3x plus 2. Sign in the middle comes straight down. Out of the next one, I can take out a 4, and I'm left with positive 3x plus 2. So now when I write it, I get this. Now you might be at this point tempted to say you're done, but this one actually factors further. Check out this part right here. Can't we do something with that? We can. That's the difference of squares. Okay. Now, why did this not happen on the other ones? Because on the other ones, if you look at these exponents, they're all an invisible 1. And if it's an invisible 1 in your final answer, it's not going to go any further. Now up here, it wasn't an invisible 1, but it's not a minus sign. And the pattern is only for the difference of squares. That's the sum. So there's no way that could work. So I'm going to keep factoring. This part does not change. Oh no, it's getting... I get 3x plus 2. But this one does factor further to x plus 2, x minus 2. All right, last one, number 10. We got to look for greatest common factor, and we know it has to have one because it starts with a -6. So it looks like I can take out a -2. So I'm going to take out a -2, and that leaves me with 3x squared. Remember, it's going to change the sign, so positive 13x. And minus 10. Okay, well, I still am going to have to guess and check, but now my numbers are significantly smaller. So that's going to help out. So I've got my 2 parentheses. Notice this GCF and all the times just gets carried straight down. You don't do anything with it. Okay, so to get 3x squared, I know I'm going to have 3x and x. And now I need numbers that multiply to 10. So I can have 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. 1 and 10 is not very likely. It's not impossible, but not very likely. So if I try 2 and 5, this is 2x, this is 15x. Because they multiply to a negative, I know they're going to have to be opposite signs, so I know I'm going to have to subtract. 2 minus 15 is 13, so that's good. I need the bigger one to be positive, so this is going to have to be positive to make 15 positive. This is going to be negative to make the -2 positive. And then that is my final answer. Okay, your assignment is on Delta Math. You can keep these notes to work on your Delta Math assignment. But when you're done with Delta Math, you need to turn these notes into the sub so you can get credit for both the notes and also the Delta Math. The Delta Math is due at the end of class as well.